Hey, today on the agenda, we're going to talk about how you can get into a tech career from a different career. And no, it doesn't require you going to school. There's a different way that you can do that. Hey, my name is Kenny, and you are watching Tech Talk with RHT Services. I run Robinson Handy and Technology Services, where I build software as well as do handyman work. This is the technical discussion, and today I'm talking about how you can get a tech career without having to go back to school to get a degree or to get into tech. Now, a lot of people will say, well, hey, you got to have a degree to get into tech. And the answer is no, you don't. You can do certifications and get into tech. It will take a lot more certifications if you don't have a degree than if you do have a degree, but it is possible. What I want to talk about though is the fact that there are people that want to change careers entirely. So they want to go from nursing to tech. They want to go from building construction work to tech. They want to do something that is typically not considered related to tech and then get into tech with that. And so the example that I give is a similar example, but it's use case specific. And that specific example is you want to start with what you have and not reinvent the wheel, but instead pivot so that you're not reinventing the wheel. Now, what does that sound like? Now, I'm gonna go ahead and tell you this is straightforward advice. And every time I give this advice, you like, that makes so much sense. And like people just immediately get it. So I'm gonna tell you about the recent example that I've given. A lady had been talking with her husband, and the husband was like, "I want to get out of the job that he was in." At the time that we were talking, he was working in a hospital doing facilities maintenance. His prior to that position, he had worked in several manufacturing plants, doing automobiles, like building automobiles or installing components or whatever the case may be. It was in automotive, working in an automotive plant. So automotive plant, and then facilities maintenance. Facilities maintenance is maintaining air conditioners, changing light bulbs, changing light fixtures, fixing holes in walls, that type of thing. He wanted to get out of that second job to go be into a tech career because of the fact he heard about the money, and he also believes that it will give him the opportunity to do something different that would better play on his skill sets. However, the thing is, he does not have a degree at all. Like, he never got a degree. I'm assuming when he graduated high school, he went straight into the workforce because back then, probably in the 1970s or 80s, you could do that and be successful. But he doesn't want to go back to school because, I mean, he's 50, 60 years old. Who wants to start over with a bunch of 20 something and teenagers? And I kind of understand that perspective. So this is what I told his wife. The husband was not there at the time, so I couldn't tell him. But what I told the wife was he should look into building automation, and he should look into smart buildings. Smart buildings, if you're not aware, basically use a variety of sensors to gather data about the environment, the lighting conditions, temperature, humidity, and then that data is fed into a system, and then that system has its algorithms, logic, whatever you want to call it, that then makes decisions to change a variety of other things. For those of us who are familiar with home automation, this would be the equivalent of home automation is smart buildings. So with that, I was like, he should look into that because of the fact he knows how air conditioners work and so forth, and I'm gonna try to stick with the air conditioner thing. Uh, if an air conditioner, in some cases, air conditioners can pull more electricity than they're actually supposed to. When they do that, that is indicative of a problem. In some cases, that indicates that there's too much freon. There's not enough freon, and that some freon needs to be added. In other instances, it could mean a component is bad or is going bad and needs to be replaced before it actually fails. And so what I explained is you can take that data that those smart sensors are telling you, or this whatever is telling you, use it to build out algorithms and to analyze the data. And when you start seeing trends of changes in the power, water consumption, natural gas consumption, you get the idea. You can then say, okay, something's wrong with that. Let's go check it out. And I told her if he gets onto that and can utilize that to his benefit to be able to work with these smart buildings, he could then go work for a company that, you know, sells this type of technology to commercial buildings. It's not as big in residential, but it is possible that you could also have the same technology in residentials or residences rather. And so that would get him into tech because of the fact he already knows how or knows these things about these systems that run a building. Now you just got to add the tech component to it and put them together, and voila, you're in the tech field. Now, one thing I did not mention to her at the time that I eventually did come back and realize that I probably should have mentioned is that the LEED certification, LEED certification, that's offered by the U.S. Green Building Council, a lot of that certification, the current version, that is version 4 or version 4.1, I think is the current version, has a lot to do with using sensors and technology to factor in the smartness of the building. So with that, he could go start working with the smart technology to check the sensors and so forth in the building, and then he could take that a step further and go get a LEED certification associated with, you know, building green building. And so now not only is he knowledgeable in, let's say, the air conditioning system, he now has a green LEED certification that he can use to certify new buildings, and then he can implement that technology or sell that technology that meets the LEED certification, and thus, you know, it's a win-win all the way around. Even though the initial objective was to work in tech, he can get this certification that can work with that tech, and he can actually sell that tech if he chooses. So a lot of times it is easy to pivot from where you currently are to where you would like to go, but a lot of people don't get that story. Instead, they get the you need to go to a coding boot camp, which in my personal opinion, I despise. You need to go back to school, which if you're late in your career, you're not going to want to go back to school because school is expensive. And, you know, if there's an easier road, most people would rather take the easier road than trying to go back to school. You can shadow, you can look online. Heck, you're watching this video now, and so this is one example of how you can find resources that will help you get into that career. The main thing that I will say though is if you are trying to transition, you need to have transition into a tech career. You need to have experience. Regardless of what that experience is in, you need to have experience that's related to the job. So when it comes to this gentleman's, the example I just previously used, he has experience working in facilities maintenance. So he can pivot that and use that to his benefit when trying to get into a tech career that is related to analyzing buildings and facilities and so forth. The same thing could be said for if he was trying to get into working with tech and cars. You know, putting a car stereo in or something of that nature, which is not as prevalent today since everybody has, you know, dash cams and, excuse me, not dash cams, but touchscreen systems and in-car navigation and all this type of stuff. But it is something that is possible. So those are my thoughts on that. If you have different thoughts about how somebody can get into tech from an existing career without having to go to college or without having to take a boot camp, leave your comment down below because there are many ways that this can be done, and this conversation it will not go away, in my opinion. This conversation has been had multiple times, and I've seen it in multiple places, even by people who are just getting started. And, you know, this could be a talking point for forever, to be honest with you. All right, comments or questions, please leave those down below. Thank you for watching, and last but not least, please be sure to subscribe because if you subscribe, I know you're interested in the content and I will make more content. Thank you for watching.